O9A originated in the United Kingdom in the 70s. Temple of Blood was an American iteration from the 2000s, utilizing adaptations of O9A concepts and exercises. Temple of Blood was the main vehicle by which the teachings of O9A spread in America. Its founder, Joshua Caleb Sutter, was outed as a federal informant in 2021 after he helped the U.S. government disrupt the atom weapon division. CASAP's manifesto title, Accelerate the Collapse, captures one aspect of the aims of adherents, but why do they want to accelerate the collapse? In O9A texts, Nazarene appears often. It is a derogatory label for Christians. They describe Christianity as a disease which hinders evolution. So they aim to undermine and destroy Christian influence, leading to chaos from which a new aeon will emerge. This aeon being satanic, the return of the dark gods and the creation of a satanic age and a satanic empire. Temple of Blood provides their vision of what a satanic empire would look like. Force-styled regime fueled with pure hate and cruel intent, aimed high at burning the system alive and establishing a real-life hell-on-earth scenario. A regime of shock troops hell-bent on committing atrocious acts for the glory of Satan. And so what do they mean by satanic? O9A says, Satanism is dark and Satanists revel in evil. Genuine Satanists do evil, they cultivate evil, they are evil, in all senses of the term now accepted. Adherents are called upon to engage in immoral, illegal, and evil activity, and the intent is presencing the energies of darkness / Satan on earth in accord with sinister intent. Okay, side note, dark gods, presencing the energies of darkness. I realize to a materialist this sounds a little bit too crazy to take seriously, so I would just ask you to please reserve judgment on what they think they're accomplishing metaphysically, and focus on the fact that kids are being encouraged to overcome their moral and ethical guideposts, and there are subcultures in which this is treated as personal growth. And these kids are not only being encouraged to engage in violence and predation, but they're also being encouraged to manipulate others into becoming instruments of evil. Temple of Blood says, to increase darkness, limits must be pushed and smashed. And Temple of Blood talks about overcoming the neurological imprinting that is based on Nazarene ideals. And this is done so that the individual can reach into the backwards darkness and become something which is more than human. Temple of Blood talks a lot about breaking taboos and deprogramming through shock. And they get pretty explicit about one way you can shock your system to overcome the programming. One big shock would be the defilement of sexuality for those who harbor traditional American fraternity boy practices. The first thought may be, oh my, but I find some of those practices to be disturbing. That is precisely the point, and that is why it is precisely those things which are unexplored and disturbing which must be engaged in. In addition to defilement of one's own sexuality, a big theme for Temple of Blood is a heavy promotion of predation. And so it's important to remember that any excerpt I read from Temple of Blood today is something that was published while he was being paid as an informant by the FBI. The FBI declined to respond when journalist Allie Winston asked them about Sutter's role as a paid informant while spreading O9A ideology through his publishing company. I don't know what Joshua Caleb Sutter's status with the FBI was when he posted this in March of 2024, but I want to show it because it demonstrates the level of predation being embraced. Investigator Jake Hanrahan took this screenshot from a now-deleted Twitter account belonging to Sutter. It's a shrine of Marc Dutroux, and he was a Belgian serial killer and child molester convicted of kidnapping, raping, and murdering multiple young girls in the 90s. He kept some of his victims in a dungeon, and there were allegations that Dutroux was involved in a high-profile child sex trafficking ring. The post says, "Who are you to attempt to limit the scope of dark forces, to try and chain an evil that has existed since time immemorial, ancient evil that cannot be chained? Words endure for yet a season, but the word of Satan shall endure until the end of all things." Temple of Blood texts include short stories describing child sacrifice and include instructions for the ideal deprivation and torture methods used when you are trying to enslave somebody. This excerpt is describing how harming a victim can aid in the transformation of the adherent. O9A texts describe other rituals in which the adherent is to defile Catholic hosts while saying, "By this deed, I pledge myself to counter Nazarene filth and give myself to Satan." Zealous Christians disrupting satanic groups are described as suitable candidates for involuntary human sacrifice. Elsewhere, the text says a practitioner can either perform assassinations themselves or may manipulate others into doing it. The result is the same: personal experience and development, and aeonic energies presenced via the execution of the act. We shouldn't expect adherents to overtly display their Satanism. At certain stages of initiation, adherents are instructed to take on roles, during which time they conceal their satanic beliefs and become, in fact, a shape changer, a chameleon. And one suggested role for adherents to cloak themselves in is that of a political activist. Temple of Blood describes infiltration and manipulation of organizations as one of their top aims. And practitioners are instructed to use the ideals of the individual/organization being targeted to manipulate them to serving the interests of the Satanists. Part of the motivation for not overtly displaying Satanism may be understood by viewing posts from the now-defunct fascist forum Iron March. Members there responded with a bit of mockery during the initial introduction of O9A ideas. There is actually a bit more strategic motivation to the concealment, however. By concealing their beliefs and disguising themselves as politically motivated actors from different ends of the political spectrum, they aim to exploit tensions already present in society. O9A texts describe the strategy and tactics for destroying America. The tactics include spreading satanic ideas and methods, supporting organizations and groups on both sides of the political spectrum to enhance disruption and breakdown, spreading subversive and heretical ideas, encouraging drugs and crime. And the strategy is to break down society from within, anticipating increasingly authoritarian reactions from government as the breakdown accelerates. Temple of Blood says, it is useful for the practitioner to begin exploring the disruptive forms, actions, and creeds which will elicit hysterical reactions from the hordes of human chattel. When one has found a form which is able to touch a nerve within the populace, it should be explored. Temple of Blood says, we should seek to associate with and/or join with a revolutionary political movement which is in hard contrast to the present government and societal superstructure, which seeks to cripple the current powers that be, resulting in widespread chaos, rioting, and crime. These kinds of groups can be found in both the extreme right and the extreme left. Temple of Blood wrote of unifying the ultra-left and the ultra-right, and the overall mission of championing the predatory psychopolitics of extremism. O9A imagines a future in which a satanic power structure within America allies with fundamentalist Islamists.